CEO begins illicit affair with hot subordinate. It's a tale as old as time, a story we've seen in the news and in culture over and over again. But this time, it's a little different. It's Babygirl. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm leaving the theater. All right, this is Ronald, and I am leaving the theater after seeing Babygirl. Babygirl, written and directed by Halina Reijn, starring Nicole Kidman, Dickinson, Antonia Banderas, and Sophie Wilde. And as usual, for a complete cast listing, you can go to the link in our show notes. It is just me today, and I gotta be honest with you, I've probably said this before on this show. We've recorded a lot of episodes. We, meaning me, I have recorded a lot of episodes, and this is probably one that I should have not seen alone. Not because, it just feels like this is ripe for discussion. I can already think through the list of former guests that I've had on this show that would have definitely, especially the women, who definitely would have had something to say about this movie in particular. So let's just get right into it. So Babygirl is a movie about Nicole Kidman, who is a CEO whose name I cannot remember because I just left the theater and I have not Googled yet. So she is a CEO of a robotic company, an automation company, essentially. And she basically begins a sordid affair with her intern, played by Dickinson. His name is Samuel. I do remember his name. Maybe it's because it was just Samuel. I don't know. And if you've seen the preview, you've seen pretty much how the affair starts, which is like there's just this play between her. There's a power dynamic that they're playing with, the two of them, in their sexuality. Or in their sexual relationship, which is mostly just sexual. There's more. You know what? Who knows? You know what I mean? Who knows if it's a real relationship or just sexual? Sexual relationships are also relationships. Man, I've traveled down a path here. This is going to be the whole episode, so strap in, because this is going to be me talking frankly. And let me just say, if you got kids, this is not the kids leaving the theater, because I'm not going to talk graphically about sex, but I am going to say some things about sex that I don't know if you're ready for your kids to hear yet. I don't even know if you're ready to hear yet. I wasn't ready to see some of the things that I saw, and that's the thing. It wasn't like they were depraved, or in a lot of cases, it's a pretty vanilla movie. Except for the fact that they're playing with this power imbalance over and over again, which then becomes kind of like the engine for all of the most sordid parts of the movie. And I wouldn't even say sordid is the right word for it necessarily. So they start this relationship, and I think what they establish early on is that Nicole Kidman is unsatisfied in her sexual life, even though she has a loving husband who's a good father, who is attentive to her sexually and seems to be trying hard. He's game to show up and try, which is something that the movie kind of posits, that he's a good man and he listens to her, which I think. And I don't think I'm mistaken there in thinking that. I'm already wondering if somebody else saw the movie and was like, nah, he's the worst. I don't think he's the worst. I think he's supposed to be a guy that you like, and he's supposed to be a guy that can be listened, that does listen to his partner, which he does. He listens to his partner in this film. However, Nicole Kidman, it opens, and just to put, like, just to go straight at it, it opens with her having sex with Antonio Banderas and appearing to climax, and then later on she goes and she watches porn in order to actually finish the job herself. And so, and the type of porn she's watching is this power dynamic slash, like, you know, dom sub relationship type thing. So she's entered this dom sub relationship with this intern, and that's kind of like the big tent poles, I would say, of the movie. That's part of like that's the big skeletal structure that's holding the movie up. I want to talk about the other parts that I think could have done better, because I don't know if these were studio notes, but I think, like, we're supposed to believe that this woman is a CEO of a very, like, public company, a very public and on the cutting edge company. I do think they failed at that. They did a very good job showing that Nicole Kidman was a rich woman who had access, but they weren't really showing her as a CEO. And when I say that, I mean, typically CEOs, there's people coming and going all the time. There's this level of pressure that exists. And I'm not sure if some things got cut, but she just felt like she had a lot more time than most CEOs I've seen. I want to be clear. I don't think this is not a critique of a woman being a CEO. I'm saying that in this movie, they didn't do a good enough job about talking about all of the demands of her time, specifically at work. They started to in the beginning, where the interns come in and they introduce themselves to her, and they're kind of hustled away like, all right, she doesn't have time for y'all. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. It should be like that over and over again. But there's enough interactions between her and the intern, whether intentional or unintentional, where I'm just like, I feel like they could have wove this in a way that made more sense. Like, in terms of the time that she has to actually do this. At some point, it doesn't really matter anymore, because I think the point they're trying to make is, and so they start a relationship and there's a power imbalance, which is fine. And when they get there, they do a good enough job with that I'm like, okay, I'm not going to quibble about, you know, this about the ways in which they're conveniently placing her in places to be in relationship with this intern. But, you know, it was something that stuck out to me early in the movie. As the movie goes on, I get more into it. I remember the two biggest notes that I had was that, like, there didn't seem to be any sense of hierarchy at this company, which is another thing that I felt like, in terms of, it just felt like anybody can run up on a CEO. And I'm just like, I've been to a lot of places and I know they got open door policies, but typically that's just not how it is, especially if you're an intern. You have some sort of FaceTime with them, but typically they be out, like, doing stuff. And if she's running a robotics company, I don't even see how she's in town that much. It seems like she's, like, out consulting, like, trying to get this thing into other places over. I don't know. It just, that seemed to, the walk up, her availability and accessibility, like, it stuck out to me. Once I got past that, and they started having their affair, I remember thinking this felt a lot like a regular affair. Like, it was just them stealing moments, these moments away from each other that are very, very intended to be, like, coded hot sexually with these two people into each other. I want to point out that this movie does a good job of talking about the difference between the sex that we want to have and the sex that we actually have, which, I mean, I guess can be summed up by saying the stuff that we fantasize about versus the stuff that we actually get, which is like, I feel like if that's the crux of the movie, which it ends up being, as it moves on, we get to the end, when we get to the monologuing and all that stuff at the end of the movie, it ends up being, yes, like, I would prefer to have this other sex, but this is the sex that's available to me if I want this life. All of those things are mixed in this blender where it's like, but I want this life, and what do I actually want from life, and who do I want to be with, and what do I want, and all that, and what kind of sex does that mean that I get to have, you know? And I feel like Nicole Kidman does a very good job of being, like, very conflicted about all of this, even though, you know, she does, like, I mean, they literally have a lot of close-up camera views of her face writhing in ecstasy, but they also do a lot of close-up camera views of her writhing in conflict, which I think they nailed that. Like, I'm sitting there looking at it and I'm just like, yeah, this is good. You're actually, like, convincing me that she really is having trouble with this. Harris Dickinson, I really enjoyed him in Triangle of Sadness. I did not enjoy him as much in this, but it was mostly because I felt like he was very well cast for the conflicty office romance parts of it between him and Nicole Kidman. But the more extremely sexual portions between the two of them, there was something about it where I'm just like, I don't know, man. I'm not feeling this. Like there's something about this that doesn't feel, it's not as exciting as I think it could be, and I don't know if it's because I didn't think he was bringing that heat. That's just me. And I'm like, women may have a totally different opinion of this, and that's fine if I'm wrong. I'm just saying, watching this, I'm just like, I mean, Nicole Kidman is like real punched in for this, but I don't get the sense that Harris Dickinson actually is. But the parts where they're yelling at each other, where they're conversating, where they're talking about things about work and their dynamic between each other, that stuff he did very well. And for that reason, I hope he gets more roles. Again, he did Triangle of Sadness, Oscar nominated film. And now he's doing this, which is definitely going to get a lot of Oscar buzz. But I think generally that's parts of that took me it was harder for me to stomach those parts. I guess I would say. And I want to be clear. It's not like, oh, this is too sexual for me. I just mean like, it just the believability. I'm just like, I don't know about this guy. Like, are you sure about this guy? Like him? Really? Like I felt like that a few times, except when they were like talking or interacting and I don't know how to explain it. It's just something that stuck out to me a little bit. Now, in terms of this is the time of year, this movie got a December release, but a December limited release and then a wide release in January, which typically means they want to make sure that they put it out in time for it to be an Oscar contention, and which I think obviously Nicole Kidman is going to be up for Best Actress. Like if this is a Lifetime Achievement Award, she deserves it, but also for this performance, she did a very good job. There's just a lot of close-ups of her face, and she's doing a very good job, especially as a woman who's been working in Hollywood for the entire time that I've been able to view movies. I want to say all of the 90s, all of the 2000s, all of the 2010s, she has been working this entire time, and she's playing without directly stating it. She is playing with all of the ideas of being a woman who is aging and feeling or any person actually, but specifically a woman that's aging and feeling like, am I even still a sexual creature? Do I get the ideas? Do I get to have pleasure? Do I get to receive all of those things at this age? But also I'm reaching for power. What is it like for me to be a woman in power and doing some of the same things that a man would do? What does it look like if I'm doing it? Is that okay? All of that begins to play into her performance. And then on top of that, I think Antonio Banderas should he's back, baby. What he did in this movie, I'm like, this is honestly, I remember thinking, man, I ain't seen this dude in a while. You just been doing Puss in Boots for 10 years or so. And he shows up to do this and he clocked in and got the job done. This, in terms of character driven story, the plot, not my favorite, but the character-driven story, me and these characters, I really enjoyed them. I think there could have been a little more character development, specifically when I'm talking about the CEO stuff, and maybe more talking. I needed more for them to understand why this woman would risk blowing up her life. They don't do the thing where they say, husband sucks, that's why, which I don't think it needs to be that overt, but definitely there was a layer of dissatisfaction that I think was enough for them to say, go and blow that up, player. You know what I mean? Which I think is enough for this movie, but I would not have been upset with them giving me more about her. And honestly, more about Samuel. I don't think I got enough about Samuel as a human. We only see him when he's interacting with her. We only see we only see him through her eyes, and we only see him when he's interacting with her. Oh my God. Okay, so they did that on purpose. I'm getting that right now. Laura would probably say they're doing that on purpose. Actually, Nick would say that too. Because it's if we're doing this from the view of a man specifically, then why would we know any of the interiority of this sexual object except for the ways in which he interacts with the protagonist? No, I get that. Oh man, that might get you another quarter-star movie. Yeah, well, with all of that being said, you know what? And before I get into that, I will say this. This is one of those movies that makes me feel very insecure as a man, because I watch it and I'm just I have no idea what women want at all. I have no idea. Every time I think I got it, I'll see a movie like this and I'll see the reaction of women to this movie and I'll be like, oh, wait, this is what women want? And I know not all women. I know it's not every woman on the planet, but it's just very much, I'll look at it and be like, okay, all right, well, all right, hey, you sit down over there. Sit down. I can't do it. But the point is, anyway, but I think like this is a movie that I feel like it's stating something and it's obviously resonating deeply with women and based in the memes and reactions and the amount of women I've seen that have like gone out to see this, like in groups of, I was in a theater full of women in groups. It was either women in groups and couples and me. You know what I mean? So yeah. Anyway, all of that being said, I think this is a 4.25 star movie. It's good. I felt unsatisfied a lot, but the character, the performances were very good. This is a movie I would love to see on a Best Picture slate in terms of, like, I don't think it's going to win Best Picture, but it should. Like, Nicole Kidman just put everybody on notice. So, I mean, it's going to be hard to beat her in this performance, to be honest, especially with her pedigree. Like, she's on the ballot. I mean, she's on the ballot. It's going to be hard for the Academy to ignore this one. And I'm like, nothing's jumping to mind of anyone else that I think is like, that did this. You know what I mean? Like, nobody, not this season. I don't know anybody that's actually doing that. And I'm actually looking up to see if she's won. Okay, so she's won an Academy Award. So, I mean, that might get her number 2. But to be an Academy Award winner, I mean, to be honest, she has an Academy Award, a British Academy Film Award, 2 Primetime Emmys, 6 Golden Globes, and 1 SAG Award. So she might get her second Oscar off this one right here. Like, highly decorated, and she really was game to do what she needed to do in this movie. So yeah, I think she's going to get nominated. I think it's going to probably get a writing nomination, original screenplay. I think it's an original screenplay. It'll probably get a writing nod. Yeah, I think, and I don't think directing, I don't know, maybe directing, I don't know. I've seen all the movies this year and I'm still like, I don't know what the buzz is because this has been such a down year. But in a year like this, a movie like Babygirl could get a lot of buzz and a lot of like recognition at the Oscars, but definitely Nicole Kidman's performance at the bare minimum needs to be mentioned. So, with that, Leaving the Theater is a production of Oh It's Big Ron Studios. I mixed this episode, and currently I'm sitting in a freezing cold car in Shirlington, Virginia, and it's cold. And I do this because I love movies, and I love reviewing them for y'all, and I have to put in the effort to make sure that it gets out every week. That's what I'm doing. If you enjoy this show, and you enjoy that effort, and that means something to you, become a patron. Go to patreon.com/leaving the theater or go to the link in our show notes. Show art from Heather Wilder. Theme music from the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. For more information about Babygirl, check out our show notes. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, or Letterboxd at Oh It's Big Ron. That's at OHITSBIGRON. You can find out more about this show and other Oh It's Big Ron Studios shows by following us on Instagram at Oh It's Big Ron Studios. Leaving the Theater will be back soon. Thanks for listening. Oh, God. Anyway. The point is, it's one of those movies where I'm just like, well, everything that's happening in this is not something, man, I think I pulled a muscle laughing. Oh, Lord, help me. Oh, God. All right.